Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to take a look at this interview on BBC Hard Talk, where they interviewed TPLF spokesperson. This interview was actually quite sad, especially when he was talking about Ethiopia's disintegration and all-out civil war. Now before we get started, please remember to subscribe, like, share and comment.
What is the end game for Tigray's rebels? My guest is the spokesperson for the Tigray People's Liberation Front, Getachew Reda, who is. We see the terrible suffering that millions of people are experiencing in your region as a result of, 8-9 months of conflict. Why is it that your side, the Tigray People's Liberation Front, appears intent on intensifying the fighting rather than ending it?
Well, it's exactly the same reason why we took up arms and tried to liberate our people from the suffering you've alluded to. In fact, we do not consider ourselves rebels. We are a legitimately elected government who was removed from the capital by Abiy and his partners in crime, the Amhara expansionist forces, and the Eritrean regime. So these people, these partners in crime, have brought all kinds of untold miseries on our people, and we did everything in our power to bring together all our efforts to liberate every square inch of Tigray territory from the invaders. Of course, this crisis, the humanitarian crisis you've been alluding to, of course, our people, millions of our people are suffering from this man-made crisis, was systematically engineered and generated by the very people who invaded our territory, invaded our people.
The question is quite fair because the government of Ethiopia has been saying for a while now that they want ceasefire, and the TPLF rebels haven't allowed that to happen. Now, unfortunately, when he's talking about that we're not rebels, we are a legitimate government, I don't even know what that means. I mean, there's only one government in the country. And when he's talking about liberating Tigray from who? How can you liberate the country from your own government? And here I have to say that I might be a bit biased because I personally want Ethiopia to stay Ethiopia. I don't like separatism.
It's hugely important that we talk about the humanitarian crisis, and we'll do so in just a minute. But first, to talk about the military situation, I referred to intensification on your part, because in June we know that Abiy Ahmed, the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, declared a ceasefire. The Ethiopian forces withdrew from the city you're in, Mekelle. You claimed a victory, and he said that his forces would stop fighting. But since then, your forces have pushed beyond Tigray's regional borders into Amhara, into Afar. You are now taking the fight beyond your own borders.
Look, we have not yet liberated a significant part of Tigray. The western part of Tigray is still in the hands of either Eritreans or Amhara expansionist forces, as well as federal ANDF forces. And the joke that Abiy did declare a unilateral ceasefire in the 20th of June is simply a joke, because it was only a decision made by Abiy once his strongest military units in Tigray were absolutely decimated by our forces. So we vowed then, and will continue to vow even now, that until such time that the very war apparatus, military apparatus that wrought havoc in Tigray ceases to operate, as long as there continues to be a threat to our people, safety and security of our people, will continue to take whatever action is necessary to make sure the guns are silenced. Because there continues to be a concerted effort on the part of Abiy and his partners, both Amhara expansionist forces as well as the Eritrean forces, to cow us into submission, to continue to perpetrate the kind of suffering, kind of heinous crimes that they have been committing against our people.
What is the point of invading other regions, attacking Amhara regions and taking other people's land in the name of liberating your own land from your own government? That would seem to be illogical. And as you can hear from his answers, the way he is speaking is like somebody who's leading a government, a freedom fight of sort. It's also nice to talk about silencing the guns when you are the ones taking guns to other people's regions. You are the one who is increasing this war.
How far are you prepared to go? The world's media, hang on, the world's media saw just the other day that your forces seized Lalibela, the very famous site of ancient churches in Amhara region. We also see your forces in Afar region. There are tens and tens of thousands of newly displaced people because of the expansion of the territory controlled by your forces. How far are you prepared to go?
There are two things here. We have to make sure the safety and security of our people is secure. And to do so, we have to make sure that Abiy and his forces will not be in a position to come back and haunt our people anymore. Abiy has continued to maintain a chokehold on our people. He has cut off communications, he has cut off electricity, he has cut off access to humanitarian aid, and he wants us to continue what he has failed to achieve in the war front, to continue through the kind of siege he has imposed on the people of Tigray. So we have made it abundantly clear that until such time that such a siege is lifted and that our people are back to normalcy, that no amount of security threat continues to be posed against our people by those Eritreans or Ethiopians or the Amhara expansionists, will continue to take whatever action is necessary.
So to be clear, let's keep this as concise as we can. To be clear, you're saying that as things stand right now, you have on your side, that is the TPLF side, Tigrayan People's Liberation Front side, you have no interest in a ceasefire right now.
We have made it abundantly clear that we will agree to a ceasefire, a negotiated ceasefire, as long as the conditions we have put forward are met. These conditions have nothing to do with additional infrastructural facilities on Abiy's part, no additional arrangements on the federal government's part. It's about switching on telecommunications, it's about switching on banking services, it's about switching on electricity. This does not require any amount of effort on Abiy's part. He switched off those services.
I understand.
This guy seems to be quite cocky to me. They currently seems to be winning the war. So I think he's overconfident and he doesn't want to have a peaceful end to this situation. I also found it funny when he said that we're going to fight until Ethiopians and Eritreans can no longer hurt us. Are you not Ethiopian? Also, when you are living in a country, what do you want to achieve with this war? Do you want the Ethiopian army to be totally decimated so that you never have to worry about them? Do you know that if you decimate the Ethiopian army, do you know that Egyptians will come next? You are in a situation where you are surrounded by enemies, and currently people all around you want you to be destroyed, but unfortunately you don't care about that.
You're saying that the Ethiopian government and its allies must open up all of the services, the communications, the supply routes into Tigray as a precondition for ceasefire, but the U.S. government, never mind the Addis government, the U.S. government is saying that another immediate, urgent precondition for a ceasefire must be you withdrawing your forces from Amhara and from Afar regions. And I want to know if you're prepared to do that.
We're not prepared to do that. While we understand where the Americans are coming from, while we understand the kind of exerted effort they have, the kind of concerted efforts they have exerted on behalf of our people, we are very grateful to that. But we totally beg to differ when it comes to withdrawal of our forces back to Tigray, because we still have to liberate every square inch of Tigray territory. The West is still in the control of Amhara expansionists, the Eritreans, and the federal forces. Second, we don't have any security arrangement which will ensure that Abiy, with his declared intention to commit genocide in Tigray, will not come back and unleash the kind of suffering he had perfected into an art form the last 9 months.
I'm listening.
We want the government to do 3 things, but we are not willing to do 1 thing. When you are asking the government to open the banking system and to open the roads and everything for you, you do understand that you are still rebelling against the government. You are still in an active war. And if they open those lines, you will just get money from abroad so that you can continue your expansion. That would be illogical for them to open the finance systems for you. It will be illogical for them to open the corridors for you to have free access to the world, because, as I said before, you are surrounded by enemies, and those enemies will gladly support your efforts. And also the confidence is quite shocking. No, we're not going to leave. Well, my brother, I hate to tell you this, but you're not going to win this war. Only thing that's currently happening is that you may have a moment where you are winning, but don't get overconfident. So it would be better, now that you are in a position of power, to negotiate with the government, but you're not willing to do that. I don't think you will ever have a better argument or better position to negotiate a better terms. And once those terms are set, once the government meets them and once you meet them, you don't have to worry about the government attacking you anymore.
Very hard to what you're saying. And when you accuse Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, whose ruling party, let us not forget, did win a crushing majority of seats in the federal parliament just a couple of months ago, when you accuse...
I consider that a joke.
Well, you say it's a joke, but when he is accused by people on your side of genocide, I'm wondering whether you're really saying that there can be no peace as long as Abiy Ahmed is still in power in Addis Ababa. Is that what you're saying?
I don't care if it sticks around in Arat Kilo, but what I care more about is whether he is in a position to threaten the safety and security of our people anymore. Whether he stays put in Arat Kilo is a totally different story. Ethiopians are entitled to pick their own leader, and if they want to maintain Abiy Ahmed as their leader, even if he presides over the disintegration of the nation, that is the least of my problem at this point in time.
Hang on, Abiy Ahmed isn't their leader, he's also your leader. You are an Ethiopian.
I respectfully disagree. He's not my leader. I didn't take part in the elections. And I would have
you do not live in a separate state called Tigray. You live in Ethiopia, and Tigray is one region within Ethiopia.
Yes, I live in Ethiopia, but I live in a territory which we, thanks to the struggle of our people, have liberated from the chokehold of Abiy Ahmed. Except that he wants to extend his chokehold through other means because he happens to control the switch in Addis. But
so that's your agenda, is it? It's separatism. What this is really all about, it's important people around the world know this, is that you are seeking entire separation from Ethiopia. You no longer regard Addis Ababa and Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed as legitimate rulers of your country.
No, I don't consider Abiy Ahmed as a legitimate leader, not only of Tigray, but also the Oromos or even the Amhara. So as far as we're concerned, it's separatism to the extent that there is a tendency of separatism in Tigray, it's imposed on us. It is because Abiy and his partners in crime caused the kind of suffering which no one in their right mind could have imagined would come from a government that considers them its own. So, to the extent that there is a tendency of separatism, I don't think this was something we willfully pursued. This was not something that was part of our agenda. It still is not part of our agenda, but we have to make sure that our people have their right to self-determination, and they should have unfettered access to the full exercise of this right. Whether Abiy is considered a legitimate leader by the rest of the world is of no relevance as far as we're concerned.
When I hear you...
That was the most confusing answer I've ever heard. We are not looking for separatism, but we are forced to be looking for separatism. He is the Ethiopian leader, not our leader. But I don't also think he's Ethiopian leader. I don't think you understand what you are saying half of the time. I think you know what you want. The way you are smiling is making it clear that what you are looking for is separatism. And the man is right to ask you that, is that the point of this? Are you fighting to become a separate nation? Is that your end goal? Because in the beginning you said that you're fighting against a genocide to protect your people. But it seems to be more about separatism. It seems to be that you want to become a separate nation, and that is a whole different conversation.
Discussed Abiy Ahmed, and you've used your accusations many times. Let's move on. I want to know whether the humanitarian assistance desperately needed by hundreds of thousands of people who are facing famine is actually reaching them right now. The World Food Programme chief says that hundreds of trucks a day are needed to deliver urgent aid to those people. Are trucks getting through, yes or no?
They're not getting through. I know of 178 trucks that have gotten through, but it is It is the tip of the iceberg compared to the kind of volume that is required to feed hundreds of thousands of people. Abiy Ahmed's forces are obstructing the traffic. They are coming up with all kinds of excuses. In fact, they are using conflict that is taking place in areas where there is no traffic whatsoever, and he is giving all kinds of excuses and pretexts to obstruct food convoys. And of course, I again reiterate that the ball is in Abiy's court, and it is for him to relent on his chokehold on Tigray, to allow even humanitarian agencies to have access to cash, for God's sakes. He has cut off banking services, and humanitarian organizations do not have access to cash.
If we're talking about the humanitarian crisis, we then have to talk about the allegations of terrible, horrifying abuses and atrocities committed against civilian populations in Tigray and the surrounding regions. Now, I know that human rights groups, independent observers, have laid accusations at the door of the Ethiopian military forces, but they have also laid serious accusations at your door too. And today I'm interviewing you, not the authorities in Addis. So how do you respond, for example, to the latest reports that your forces in the TPLF bombarded displaced civilians just days ago in Galikoma town in Afar region, and according to reports, many dozens, possibly a couple of hundred civilians, including many scores of children, were killed in the TPLF attack?
You know, we are against impunity of any sort, whether it comes from Abiy or from any force whatsoever. As far as this Galikoma incident is concerned, we have made it abundantly clear that we're open for investigation, independent investigation. But to put matters in perspective...
Well, you must know, you're a senior advisor to the TPLF governing authority. You must know whether your military forces, the Tigrayan Defense Forces, did bombard civilians and cause multiple casualties.
You know, the story that Galikoma was bombarded by our forces, an absolute lie. You know how I know? Because our forces were operating there, our commando units neutralized an Afar special unit, and it's only the Afar special units while retreating who destroyed a government warehouse. But the claim that hundreds of children are killed is something we take seriously. But as far as we're concerned, it is not the work or the job of our military forces.
Well,
because our military
people
forces
might wonder how real your investigation is going to be if you've already dismissed the accusations as lies.
I'm calling for, in fact, we're working with UN representatives here to send a team to see for themselves what did happen there.
See, you've had months. Well, hang on. Let's go through it. You've had months and months to investigate the very serious allegations backed by important work done by Reuters news agency and others into what exactly happened in a small settlement called Maikadra, which is a mixed community of Tigrayans and Amhara people. And according to multiple eyewitnesses, Tigrayan youths working alongside TPLF forces shot, stabbed and killed hundreds of Amhara civilians. You've had months to investigate that. You tell me what you found.
You know, we still are open for investigation, even in the case of Maikadra. As far as we know, we're not in a position to even field.
Excuse me, you've had what is it? You've had eight months to investigate. What have you discovered in 8 months?
You know, Stefan, I will give you a rudimentary idea of what was happening the last 6-7 months. We were struggling for our lives. We were training our people. We were cornered in many parts of Tigray. And of course, we had to come back and reassert ourselves. We still are open for investigation. But, you know, the story about Maikadra is a story of advertising. You keep saying something 1,000 times over, and you end up believing it. Because we were cut off from media. We were denied of any access to communications, and every story that was churned out by Abiy Ahmed.
We are open to investigate these things, and we will be investigating, but it is a fake news. It's funny how this guy can argue for two things at the same time that are opposite of each other. Now, I also don't like this idea of different ethnicities having guns or different clans or tribes having guns. It is a major problem we have in our lands. Even in my country, different tribes have different armies and people to protect them. That is the most absurd thing that there ever is. There shouldn't be no such thing as Tigray Defense Force or Amhara Defense Force or all of these different things. There should only be one army.
The future. Right now, as we've discussed in this interview, your forces are fighting in Amhara, they're fighting in Afar, you're fighting Eritrean soldiers who are on Ethiopian territory, and of course you're fighting the Ethiopian national forces as well. You've just, as I understand it, signed some sort of military alliance deal with the rebels in Oromo. It seems that you want to fragment Ethiopia, to foment fighting on multiple fronts across Ethiopia. Is it your desire to tear apart your own country?
No, it's not our desire to tear apart the country. Even if we were to decide to become independent, we still want the rest of Ethiopia to be intact. I'm not saying we are fighting to become independent, but I wouldn't rule that out because the tendency on the part of the population is that probably it's not a good idea to stick around. But the point is, we are doing the most responsible thing under the circumstances. The OLF, whether it is considered terrorist by Abiy or not, that's secondary, is significant, is playing a significant role in a significant part of the country. And we are also reaching out to other political organizations, political entities, who would have one way or another to contribute to the continuity of the Ethiopian state.
I find your answers very interesting, and to be honest, I also find the way you just looked rather, you gave me a smile when you talked about your alliance with the rebel forces in Oromo. I'm just wondering, when one leading analyst says that there is a real possibility, a real possibility of genocidal violence in Ethiopia, and it is increasing week upon week, do you agree with him?
We are clearly seeing signs of genocide being authored, being systematically pushed by the Prime Minister himself. He's been referring to the people of Tigray as weeds to be got rid of. This kinds of vitriolic propaganda is obviously creating tension. So of course, the writing is on the wall. So our arrangement with the OLF, for example, our arrangement with other political organizations is to make sure that there is some sort of responsible transitional arrangement which would somehow avoid the kind of calamities in Abiy's irresponsible behavior would likely lead.
Did he just say that it's not okay to say out loud that we want to become independent, and that's the reason why he doesn't want to say it? Did I understand that correctly? That the only reason why he's not willing to out loud say that we want independence is because he knows people don't want to hear that and it will turn other Ethiopians against them. This man doesn't seem too concerned about the idea of Ethiopia disintegrating. Look at your neighbor. Look what's happened there. Is that what you want? 30, 40 years to live without a country, without a nation. Especially now that Ethiopia is doing better. You're doing much better. Your economy is the fastest growing in the world, or at least it used to be before the coronavirus. But you're willing to throw all of that into the garbage for what? To become like Somaliland? Semi-independent, autonomous region that nobody can interfere with? But that is not recognized by anyone, and that will never achieve anything considerable because it's not a country and it never will be a country. Tigray will never be a country. So I hope that the people who are fighting next to this man, that they reconsider their goals, because you will never get independence. And by increasing this war, going to different regions and conquering different people, doing to others what you claim has been done to you, is not the solution for you nor for anyone else. The only reasonable thing to do is to negotiate now that you are winning. Now that you have the upper hand, why don't you sit down and negotiate with your government? They are your people. You used to rule over them for 30 years. You used to be the dictators in the land. You used to do whatever you wanted. And now that you're no longer ruling, now that there's a democracy and you are losing in this democratic battle, you're willing to go to war for what? To gain your political power? Do you think that will be good for your people? You're only hurting yourself and your own countrymen. I wish all the best to the people in Tigray, people in Ethiopia. It's a beautiful country. I've visited it many times. I do hope that Ethiopia stays on the right path that it has been going before this whole situation. Now, thank you all for watching. Please remember to subscribe, like, share, and comment.